Hey guys, so this is the first official re-upload I've had to do on the channel, the video A Day in the Life, which was taken down sadly because of copyright issues. Now usually if there's a copyright issue, all that means is some big gigantic company takes over control of the ads and the revenue from that video, which is not that big of a deal to me. However, this is the second time they've blocked the video worldwide, the first being Yellow Submarine and now A Day in the Life. Which I think is a bit of an overkill, seeing that the copywritten material was a 5-second clip of John Lennon apologizing for saying that the Beatles were bigger than Jesus. But I guess that's just the way it is. YouTube is going through some serious ad issues, and it's leaving a lot of us creators feeling intimidated to use even 5 seconds worth of copywritten material for educational purposes. However, this is a beautiful story, and I hope this one stays up. So please enjoy the video.
Sugar bum fairy, sugar bum fairy.
Pop is just an easy label to attack, the same as youth is, you know. People are just uptight because the kids are having fun and they didn't have the same freedom because they didn't take it, they just followed the lies laid down by their parents.
I know. You've all been waiting so very long for this video, and I am humbled by how many of you asked me to be the one to do it. Because I understand how important this song is to you. I do. And I hope that you can understand that as a musician, A Day in the Life is my Sistine Chapel. For people who need to create, this song represents everything we've been working towards. All the risks we've taken, all the times we've put ourselves out there to see how far we could take our art. In this video, you're going to learn not just the story of A Day in the Life, not just why it was written, or that it was controversially banned on the radio, but why, after all these years, this song is arguably the most important and inspiring compositions in rock and roll, and exists as an antidote for complacent mediocrity in art. And it has inspired me to make a massive announcement at the end of this video. I can't wait to see what you all think about it. So here it is, the story of A Day in the Life. John Lennon read the news that day, oh boy, that spoke of the death of Tara Brown. Not only a millionaire, the heir to the Guinness Brewery, but a friend to the Beatles who tragically died in a car accident at the age of 21. On December 18th, 1966, Tara sped through a red light and collided with a van. But John always seemed to have a knack for channeling tragedy into art, which is evident in his work like Mother, Julia, and Cold Turkey. But A Day in the Life wasn't just about death alone, but how it is relevant in every day of our lives, just like everything that happens to us or around us is relevant. He says he read the news that day, and that he did. John Lennon had the Daily Mail propped up on his piano while he began to write the song. He says, "Just as it sounds, I was reading the paper one day and noticed 2 stories. One was about the Guinness heir who killed himself in a car. That was the main headline story. He died in London in a car crash. On the next page was a story about 4,000 potholes in the streets of Blackburn, Lancashire that needed to be filled. I didn't copy the accident. Tara didn't blow his mind out, but it was in my mind when I was writing that verse." So is it directly about Tara? John says it is and it isn't, but that's how creativity works. Reality mixed with your own imagination. Even Paul McCartney suggests it might be about something else. He says, "The verse about the politician blowing his mind out in a car we wrote together. It has been attributed to Tara Brown, which I don't believe is the case. Certainly, as we were writing it, I was not attributing it to Tara in my head. In John's head, it might have been. In my head, I was imagining a politician bombed out on drugs who'd stopped at some traffic lights and didn't notice that the lights had changed. The blew his mind was purely a drug reference, nothing to do with a car crash." Interesting that Paul McCartney would say it's purely a drug reference, because that's exactly why it got banned on the radio. You see, we know the Beatles partied, that's for sure, but they were also heavily influenced by Timothy Leary, an American psychologist and LSD advocate, who can even be seen at John Lennon's bed-in for peace. Paul attributes a part of A Day in the Life directly to Timothy Leary's literature. He says, "I had this sequence that fitted. Woke up, fell out of bed," and we had to link them. This was the time of Timothy Leary's turn on, tune in, drop out, and we wrote, "I'd love to turn you on." John and I gave each other a knowing look. It's a drug song. You know that, don't you? Well, Paul says A Day in the Life has something to do with drugs. I don't have a problem with that, and I'm sure most of you don't either. But back in those days, it was a big deal. A big enough deal that the BBC's director of sound broadcasting, Frank Gillard, sent a letter to EMI that they would ban the song. The letter reads, "The recording may have been in innocence and good faith, but we must take account of the interpretation that many young people would inevitably put upon it. Turned on is a phrase which can be used in many different circumstances, but it is currently much in vogue in the jargon of the drug addicts. We do not feel that we can take the responsibility of appearing to favor or encourage those unfortunate habits, and that is why we shall not be playing the recording in any of our programs, radio or television." I can sympathize with that, but personally I think it's nonsense. It wasn't even explicit. It doesn't make sense that you could write an incredible song and make a reference to something that's important to you or relevant in your life and have it censored, banned from the public hearing it unless they bought the album. It was a different time, but it's a shame that people who don't make art ever get a chance to deny others from witnessing it. That is the opposite of freedom of expression, especially in art. But as we've 100% come to realize, John Lennon is a public relations master, especially after the whole bigger than Jesus thing. John, while talking to reporters about the ban on the song, has a completely different interpretation of how the song came to be. The laugh is that Paul and I wrote this song from a headline in a newspaper. It's about a crash and its victim. How can anyone read drugs into it is beyond me. Everyone seems to be falling overboard to see the word drug in the most innocent of phrases. Well, we have two different stories for two different reasons, but I think we can all agree that whether it was about drugs or newspapers, but probably both, it did not deserve to get banned. It deserved to be shared with as many people as possible, because despite the lyrics being incredible, however controversial, the music was unprecedented. And, if it's okay with you, I'd like to start with our boy Ringo Starr and his incredible performance on this song. This is a song you show people if they say, "Ringo was a bad drummer." No, he was not. He is a genius, and it's evident when you hear the back and forth between John's vocals and Ringo's drumming. Ringo knows how to be a band member. He knows how to be part of an ensemble. He says, "I only have one rule, and that is to play with the singer. If the singer's singing, you don't really have to do anything. Just hold it together. If you listen to my playing, I try to become an instrument. Play the mood of the song. For example, 4,000 Holes in Blackburn, Lancashire. Ba-dum-ba-dum. I try to show that. The disenchanting mood. The drum fills a part of it." Maybe drummers can play it now because they've heard it, but they didn't create it. Ringo Starr created one of the most iconic drum performances in rock and roll history. Period. Now, one of the most remarkable things about this song is how it showcased the Lennon-McCartney songwriting team perfectly with Paul's middle section. Paul had actually written that piece before A Day in the Life was being composed, and he thought it fit perfectly with John's music and lyrics. He says, "It was just me remembering what it was like to run up the road to catch a bus to school, having a smoke and going into class. It was a reflection of my school days. Somebody would speak and I'd go into a dream." Dream. Dream is the best way to describe the song, how it floats from narrative to narrative. And only in a dream could you concoct a way to join all of these pieces together. And as we all know, it was through the Beatles' music magic. January 19th, 1967, they begin to record A Day in the Life. John singing to and with echoes on his voice in his headphones. Bit by bit, the song was put together over the next few weeks, best described in a chronological blur. The orchestra comes in, adorned in fancy dress and clown noses, as it was an event like none other. 24 bars were set aside in the middle of the song. John Lennon is slowly climbing on the piano, note by note. Assistant Mal Evans is counting the bars with more and more echoes. 40 musicians were playing their instruments from their lowest note to their highest. The clarinets are slurping, the violins are sliding. George Martin conducts them, telling him, "Whatever you do, don't listen to the fellow next to you. I don't want you to be doing the same thing." And they all looked at George Martin as if he was mad. And to end the song as powerfully as it started, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and Mal Evans struck an E major on 3 pianos simultaneously and powerfully. That last chord lasted almost an entire minute. And on the 22nd of February, that final piano chord was recorded, and the rest is history. A masterpiece was born and is still alive today. Ever since I was a kid, ever since my dad played me those first few Beatles records, I always dreamed that I could write something like that. Because the Beatles, above all, their songs were full of positivity and hope. I wished that I could have written something like that, or even 10% like that. But the thing about the Beatles is that they were brave. They didn't just write the pop hits, they kept going. And I think after all these videos, I had to have learned something. And one thing I learned is that I need to be brave too. So, in keeping with being brave, I'd like to announce that my very first album is out right now, everywhere. And it was only possible because of how many of you stuck with me for this long. I can't thank you enough for giving me the courage to pursue my dreams. And I want you all to know that I love you very much. So, my gift to you is one of the songs from my album, and I hope you enjoy it. See you next time.
and the eyes.